what kind of challenges have you had hiring Vietnamese staff or working with Vietnamese suppliers?
Well, the hiring, I think that the hiring is a bigger topic. Why don't we talk about suppliers first? Because I think HR is an issue in almost any country.
Sure.
But suppliers, I think, when you're a startup, you can only do really small quantities. Right, so we're doing runs of maybe like 100 to maybe 500 pieces of whatever it is that we order. And so when you deal with such small suppliers, the quality is hit or miss, right? And then that will depend on both your communication as well as kind of how they feel that day, right? So I brought a couple examples to show you. So lately we've been looking at making boxes to send samples and to send measuring tapes to our potential customers. And so we wanted a box with our logo printed on it, right? And so when we went to the store, she showed us samples, and they were awesome samples. They looked really crisp and clean. I don't know if you can catch it on the camera.
Right there. There's a little.
Exactly. It's runny here. This word is thicker
than the right hand side.
Exactly. And I mean, she showed us, and it's it's not even. There's bigger here, and then if you look closely, it's actually crooked. Also. Right. So there's so many things wrong with it. But the samples that she showed us all over the store, the entire store looked beautiful, right? And she was actually the only store in town that we could find that would make a small run for us. Like, what would we do with 1,000 boxes right now? We couldn't.
Okay, so let me ask a question. To me, those are still workable. If, like, when you showed it to me the first time, I didn't notice the imperfections. But now I see it. So, as a customer, you're totally justified in rejecting it or complaining. Did you go back to that supplier and point it out to her and then ask for her to compensate you somehow, like give you a discount or anything like that?
It's really hard. I mean, I think in the US, definitely the supplier would have tried to make this right. In Vietnam, it's not the case, right? In Vietnam, the supplier is always right, as opposed to the customer always being right. Because if you think about the power of suppliers in Vietnam, it's very high when it comes to a startup. We have very limited options. If you go to a big factory with kind of a guaranteed quality, they would demand at least 1,000 pieces. Right, and we couldn't do that. So the number of suppliers out there that will cater to smaller runs is very limited. So we actually, this whole project has been put on hold for about 3 months now because we were still looking for another supplier. So when we got these, we actually could only really just ask her what happened, and she said, "Oh, it kind of ran, like the ink was kind of runny," and that's all we could do. And we prepaid. And she's the only supplier, so we didn't really want to get her angry in case we wanted to try again. Because again, it's like it's up to whatever happened that day. So if we go and we decide we're going to pay again, it may turn out beautiful because she's done beautiful work in the past. So whatever happened on that day, maybe they added too much water to the ink. Our bad luck that it was our run. Yeah. So that's one example. The other example is kind of more communication related. So we're also in the process of printing new labels for, So we switched from read and fill to just read a fill to make it easy on the customer. So here you see our first iteration, which is kind of this we wanted this off cream color, really light. But if you feel it, it's kind of a very thin texture, it feels a little cheap. So then we said, okay, well, make it thicker. Right, so then they just took this same color thread and doubled up, which now it feels really nice, but now it's like really yellow, right? It's like this kind of eggshell-ish color. And so then, and meanwhile, it takes about 3 weeks in between each one, and we're paying for each sample because they have to reset everything. So it's each sample is paid for. So then we said, okay, this is too yellow. Can you make it lighter, kind of like this color, but thick like this, thinking that they would figure out what color thread should we use instead. But instead she goes and she uses just white. But now this is too white. This is like kind of like this blue white. It's very kind of stark, right? And we wanted something a little bit warm. So now we're actually still waiting for yet another iteration where we told her, okay, we want something between this and this, but this thick.
Wow.
Right. And
Crazy.
so, and it's really hard because, and I'm not sure if we would even have an easier time in the US, right? Because you can't describe some of this. Right, and the problem with going into the store, which is actually this tiny stand in the market, they've got walls from floor to ceiling of thread. And you can pick a thread, but you can't really see what it looks like because once they start kind of weaving it in and then they double weave it, so you can guess. So I don't know if we could have done it better if we chose the thread. So that's just another example of ongoing costs and time. So just a simple rebranding could take months, right? So if we were just looking at our website, all those changes took a day. Right? But everything else, because you've got a physical product, now it can drag on for months. But again, back to your point, if you were doing this locally, it would take, each one took maybe 2-3 weeks, right? But if you were international, each one could take much longer, right? Because now you have to mail things back and forth, and it increases the costs. So, I agree. When you're first starting, just try to do something local if you can.
Is that supplier Vietnamese speaking?
Yes, they're all Vietnamese speaking. They do not speak English.
You speak Vietnamese?
Yes.
So imagine trying to go through this process, iterations, and not being able to speak the same language.
Right.
Have to go through an interpreter. Incredibly frustrating.
And you know what happens when you show up with an interpreter is you get the expat discount, which is actually really the premium, right? So you get charged a whole lot more.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when I go to the market, I change the way I dress, I change the way I do my makeup and my hair, everything changes. And then when I go with my sister, whom we normally speak English with each other, we switch completely to Vietnamese, and they can already tell we have an accent when we speak Vietnamese. But if we limit the words that we say, then they can't really make out the accent. So we try to pretend like we're as local as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Really, the only solution to getting fair offers is to know the market price for that product.
Yeah.
Before you go into it, the price negotiation or price exploration, you need to know what is the fair price. Because if you don't know, they're not going to offer it to you, and you're not going to know just how far to push it down. And that's probably half the battle, is knowing what's the real market fair price when working with Vietnamese suppliers.
Yeah, and that's really hard too, because it's not like you can Google that, or there's no Yelp for that, right? So I think for us, when we first started, you just kind of have to accept the first price, and then once you do the first run, then you then you try to find another supplier, and eventually, a year later, when you've gone through 3 suppliers, then you kind of get what market rate is. But it's trial and error.
And I'm sure it's I was going to say it's the same in the US, but maybe not, because in the US there's not that element of the seller trying to sell at a higher price than what they know it should be sold at. Not as much.
Right.
Interesting case in point, I'm trying to sell my motorbike, which is 5 years old. And yesterday I went to 3 different people, and the first person, he asked me how much I want to sell for. I said 5 million. And then he offered me 2.5. So I finally got him to agree on 3 million. So then I went to another motorcycle shop, and I was thinking 3.5 million, and I offered it. I told him I wanted to sell it for 4 million, and he accepted. And now I'm thinking I need to go to another shop and offer 4.5 million, or offer 5 million to see if they'll come down to 4.5. So I think that's kind of the standard way of working in Vietnam, is you just got to do your homework. You got to get out on the road, and you got to go speak to multiple suppliers. And what you learn from supplier A, you use that knowledge when working with supplier B. And then if you can get to supplier F, by that time you know the real deal, and you know what the fair market value is.
Yeah. And it's a lot of pounding the pavement, right? Getting to supplier A, B, and C doesn't mean surfing the web, right? It means getting out there, walking down the markets, and trying to get away from each store without them yelling at you because you stood there negotiating prices and then now you're walking away, which is a big faux pas.
Exactly.
So it's tricky.
Networking with people like you and I who've been here and been around.
And have pounded the pavement. And we can just tell you the price that we learned after weeks of research.
Cool. So check out readafill.com. You can also contact Lynn directly, and in the text below the video we'll have her contact information. So thank you, Lynn, very much for coming today and sharing with us, and good luck with the business.
Great, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm a fashion startup consultant based in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. My passion is working with energetic startups to prepare them to meet investors. Together, we write your business plan, create your tech packs, fill in your quantity breakdown list, and finalize your quality control checklist. Then I take you to the Vietnamese sewing factories to get a price quote and get samples made. Get started by reading my ebooks or listening to them on audio. When you're ready, hire me and I will ease your fears and give you an action plan to realize your garment production dreams. Let's work together in Vietnam.